The one-lie men tell women in dating and relationships. Have you ever wondered why the man who once swore he wanted you suddenly begins to fade into the shadows? Why his words, so heavy with promises at the start, begin to feel hollow when you hold them up against his actions? He told you he wanted forever, didn't he? He said you were different, special, irreplaceable. But now, you catch yourself staring at your phone, rereading those same words, trying to remember if they ever truly belonged to you, or if they were only borrowed from a script he's recited before. The one-lie men tell women is not always spoken directly. It hides behind the sparkle in his eyes, the way he touches your hand, the confidence in his voice when he says, "I'm not like other men." It sounds like a promise, but it is not. It sounds like truth, but it often isn't. What he is really saying is, "I want to feel like a man through you, even if I don't yet know how to honor you." And yet, you believed him. Because why wouldn't you? You gave your heart not because you were foolish, but because you were brave. Loving is always an act of courage. And you risked yourself in the hope that his soul was strong enough to carry yours. But here's the weight of reality. Sometimes, men love the feeling of being with you more than they love the responsibility of choosing you. Has this been your story? A beginning that feels like fire, followed by the silence of ashes? He told you he was ready. He told you he wanted depth, loyalty, a woman who could stand beside him through storms. But what he really wanted was the warmth of your body without the weight of your boundaries. He wanted your nurturing heart without the discipline of his own. He wanted the version of love that made him feel alive, without the version that required him to grow up. So when he pulled away, it wasn't because you were too much. It wasn't because you weren't worthy. It wasn't even because he stopped feeling something for you. He pulled away because your presence demanded truth, and he had only rehearsed lies. Do you see it now? The one-lie men tell women isn't about money or status or even fidelity. It is the lie of readiness. The lie that says, "I know who I am, I know what I want, and it's you." When in reality, he is still a boy dressing himself in the costume of a man, hoping you won't notice the seams. And yet, you did notice, didn't you? In the way he forgot to call, in the way his affection grew lighter, in the way your laughter stopped reaching him the way it used to. The lie was never about his words. It was about his capacity to back them with consistent action. Words are easy, but love is not built in the mouth. It is built in the bones, in the choices repeated when no one is watching. So, where does that leave you? With a heart that feels betrayed, with questions that echo in the night. Was any of it real? Did he mean what he said? Or was I just a chapter in his story of becoming? And deeper still, why does this wound cut so sharply into my worth? Why does his failure feel like mine? These are the questions that unravel the illusion. The ones that reveal not just the truth about him, but the truth about you. Because what if the pain you feel now is not punishment, but awakening? The lie, he told, is still echoing in your chest. But the real question is, what will you do when you finally see it for what it is? You remember the beginning, don't you? The way he looked at you like the sun had chosen you as its favorite. The way every message felt like a small explosion of possibility. That intoxicating season where love felt so close, so real, that you could almost taste eternity on his lips. But eternity never came. Instead, his warmth cooled like a flame starved of oxygen. The conversations grew shorter. The silences stretched longer. You began asking yourself questions that every woman hates to admit. Did I do something wrong? Did I ask for too much? Did I love too loudly? Here's the cruel trick of that lie. It doesn't just leave you doubting him, it leaves you doubting yourself. His withdrawal whispers in your ear, convincing you that maybe you were too heavy, too emotional, too demanding. But listen carefully, that voice is not truth. That voice is the residue of a man who promised to carry weight he was never strong enough to hold. Psychology calls this the collapse of projection. In the beginning, he projected his fantasy onto you. He saw not just who you are, but who he wanted to be through you. You became his proof that he could be tender, faithful, present. But when the fantasy cracked under the pressure of reality, he pulled away not because you failed him, but because you exposed him. And this is where women often make their most dangerous mistake. You start working harder. You lower your boundaries. You try to prove your worth. as if his lies were a mirror reflecting your value. You think, if I can just love him enough, he will remember his promises. If I can just hold on a little tighter, he will return to the man I first met. But the truth is, that man never fully existed. He was a fragment, a mask, a version of him that wanted to be real but couldn't stay. So let me ask you, why do you cling to the memory of the mask instead of the reality of the man? Why do you forgive his silence while punishing yourself with questions? Why does his inconsistency carry more authority in your heart than your own intuition does? You see, the lie men tell women is not only spoken through their lips, it lingers in your mind long after they leave. It convinces you that you are not enough, when in reality, you were too much truth for him to handle. Because truth requires accountability, and accountability requires a man who is not afraid to look in the mirror and see his own reflection, flawed and unfinished. The wound is not that he lied. The wound is that you believed love could survive without honesty. And you are not alone. So many women fall into this same pattern, carrying the shame of someone else's dishonesty as if it belongs to them. But it does not. That shame was never yours to hold. So here you are, standing at the edge of heartbreak with a choice. Will you let his lie define the story you tell yourself? Or will you see it for what it is? A broken promise that revealed more about his weakness than your worth. The answer lies in how deeply you are willing to see yourself again. Because the moment you remember who you are, his lie begins to lose its power. But the question still remains, doesn't it? If he never truly meant it, why did his words feel so real? Why did his lies taste so much like love? Because lies dressed in longing always feel like love at first. They echo the words you have secretly prayed someone would say to you. They sound like the answer to the ache that's lived inside your chest for years. When he whispered, "You're everything I've been searching for," it wasn't just his voice you heard, it was your own hope, reflected back at you. And hope, when hungry enough, will feast even on illusions. This is why his lies felt so convincing. They aligned perfectly with the story you wanted to believe, that at last you were seen, that at last you were chosen, that at last someone finally understood the depth of your love and was ready to meet it with equal fire. The psychology is simple. The brain confuses desire with truth. When you desperately want something to be real, your mind edits reality until it fits the shape of your longing. But longing, as tender as it is, can be dangerous because it blinds you to the red flags waving quietly in the background. His hesitation, his half answers, the way he told you about the future but never took one step toward building it. You excused it, didn't you? You said to yourself, he just needs time. You convinced yourself that patience would transform inconsistency into devotion. And in that space, between what you wanted and what he gave, you built a castle out of air, a future out of fragments, a love out of shadows. Until one day, the truth came crashing down, and you were left holding rubble, wondering how something that felt so strong could collapse so easily. Here's the secret most women never hear. His lies only had power because they spoke to something you already doubted about yourself. If you were unshakably certain of your worth, his promises would have felt softer, lighter, easier to release when broken. But because a small part of you questioned whether you were truly worthy of lasting love, his words dug deep into the cracks, filling them with temporary light. This is why betrayal cuts so sharply. It doesn't just break trust with him, it breaks trust with yourself. You ask, how could I not see? How could I have been so blind? But blindness was never the problem. You saw the truth in flashes. You felt it in your gut. You knew something was off. But love, in its purest form, is faith. And you had faith in him when he didn't even have faith in himself. So what now? Do you harden your heart, vow never to trust again, build walls so high no man could ever climb them? Or do you dare to believe that his lie was not a reflection of love itself, but of his own inability to stand inside it? Because here's another truth. Not all men are liars. Not all men are boys disguised as kings. Some are real, steady, rooted. Some can meet your love without trembling under its weight. But you will not see them clearly until you learn to stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, chemistry for commitment, words for actions. The lie he told was powerful, yes, but the greater danger is the one you tell yourself now, that maybe you were not enough to keep him, that maybe love always ends like this, that maybe you are unworthy of the devotion you crave. But are you brave enough to question that lie too? Trust. The very word feels fragile now, doesn't it? Like glass in trembling hands. Once, it was easy. You trusted because your heart was pure, because you wanted to believe in goodness, because love without trust isn't love at all. But after betrayal, after the slow erosion of promises, trust feels dangerous, like stepping barefoot into a dark room, never sure where the shards are waiting. And so you hesitate. You tell yourself, you will never let it happen again. You build quiet walls around your spirit, soft at first, then stronger. You smile, you laugh, you move forward. But inside you are cautious, holding back pieces of yourself, rationing out your love as if to protect it from thieves. Yet here's the paradox. When you withhold your heart to avoid pain, you also withhold it from joy. Psychology explains this as self-protection, the instinct to guard against future wounds by limiting vulnerability. But here's the secret. Protection and isolation often look the same. In protecting yourself from hurt, you may also lock yourself away from healing. And healing does not come through walls, it comes through windows. So, what does trust look like now? Not blind faith, not naive hope, not rushing into the arms of another man who speaks the right words at the right time. Trust now must begin where it always should have within you. Trusting your own intuition. Trusting that when your gut whispers something feels off, you will not silence it for the sake of romance. Trusting that when your boundaries say this is my limit, you will not bend them out of fear of losing someone. Because here is the deeper truth. It was never about trusting him. It was about trusting yourself enough to walk away when his actions betrayed his words. The pain lingers not only because he lied, but because you abandoned yourself in believing him. That is the wound that needs tending, the betrayal of self. But listen carefully. This is not a condemnation. This is a reclamation. Every woman who has loved deeply has abandoned herself, at least once. Every heart that has longed for connection has silenced its intuition in exchange for hope. You are not weak for this. You are human. And now, wiser. So, when you ask, how do I trust again? The answer is simple, though not easy. Begin with you. Learn to trust the voice inside that you once ignored. Learn to stand so firmly in your worth that no man's promises can sway you without proof. Learn to recognize that love is not proven in grand declarations. It is proven in consistent actions, day after day, when no one is watching. And when you do this, something miraculous happens. The next time someone tries to feed you a lie wrapped in sweetness, you will taste the bitterness beneath it. You will feel it in your bones. And instead of clinging tighter, you will quietly let go, knowing that your heart is too sacred to gamble on uncertainty. But that leads to the haunting thought that keeps you awake at night, doesn't it? If you no longer believe in the lies, if you strip away the illusions, will love still exist at all? Or is it only ever a beautiful trick, a fleeting season, a promise destined to break? Love is real. That is the truth you are terrified to believe again. Because if you admit it, then you must also admit that what you lost was not love, but the shadow of it. And how do you grieve a shadow? How do you let go of something that never fully existed? That is the cruelest ache, the loss of a dream, not a reality. But here's what few ever tell you. Heartbreak is proof that you are capable of love. Not the shallow kind, not the fleeting kind, but the kind that comes from depth, from courage, from the part of your soul that is willing to risk breaking in order to touch something eternal. Do you understand how rare that is? To have a heart that dares, to have a spirit that risks? That is not weakness, that is power most people never taste. The danger lies in confusing love with illusion. Love is not fireworks that fade after the first spark. It is not sweet words whispered under the cover of night. Love is not a man who promises you forever but disappears at the first sign of struggle. No. Love is the steady flame that survives the storm. It is action over time. It is presence when passion softens. It is choosing again and again, even when it is not easy. You have seen the counterfeit. That is why the real thing feels so hard to imagine. And yet, the counterfeit is the gift, because now you know the difference. You know that charm without consistency is just performance. You know that chemistry without respect is just lust. You know that intensity without accountability is just chaos in disguise. And so the question is no longer, will I ever find love again? The real question is, will I honor myself enough to wait for the love that aligns with truth? Because the moment you choose yourself, you stop entertaining men who can only offer fragments. You stop mistaking attention for affection. You stop settling for almost love. But to do this, you must face the ache of loneliness. Because in the space between illusion and truth, there is silence. And silence can feel unbearable. It will tempt you to go back, to reach out, to cling to what you know, even if it hurts. But silence is not emptiness, it is purification. It is where your soul remembers its own voice, its own rhythm, its own worth. This is why so many women run from it. They rush to fill the gap, to distract themselves, to prove they are still desired. But every time you rush, you give the lie permission to return in a new face, in a new form. Until you learn to stand in the silence, the pattern repeats. So here's the deeper choice. Will you keep rehearsing the same heartbreak with different men? Or will you finally stop and listen to what the silence is trying to teach you? Because in that silence, a new version of you is waiting. A woman who no longer begs for love. A woman who no longer shrinks to be kept. A woman who no longer doubts her worth just because a man couldn't recognize it. But to meet her, you must ask yourself the question that changes everything. What if the love you've been searching for in him has been waiting inside you all along? And this is where the story turns. Not toward him, not toward what he did or failed to do, but toward you, toward the woman who survived. The one who walked through fire and still has a heartbeat strong enough to whisper, I am not done yet. Look at yourself clearly now. The scars you carry are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of endurance. Every tear you cried carved out space inside you for deeper wisdom, sharper intuition, stronger love, not for him, but for you. Because healing is not about forgetting. Healing is about remembering who you were before the lie and becoming someone even greater after it. Healing is choosing not to let his betrayal sour the sweetness of your spirit. Healing is standing in the mirror, looking into your own eyes, and saying, I will not abandon myself again. Yes, men lie. They lie about readiness, about forever, about what they think they want. But the greatest lie you could ever believe is that their failure defines your worth. It doesn't. It never has. You are not too much. You are simply more than he could carry. You are not unworthy. You are simply standing in front of someone unready. You are not broken. You are breaking free. And when the silence feels heavy, when the nights stretch long, when doubt whispers in your ear again, remember this: loneliness is not punishment. Loneliness is the sacred space where you rebuild. It is the quiet soil where your strength takes root. It is the pause before the rebirth. One day, you will meet a love that doesn't just sound like forever, it acts like it. A love that doesn't fear your depth but is nourished by it. A love that doesn't vanish when storms arrive but holds your hand tighter through them. And you will recognize it not because of how passionately it begins, but because of how consistently it stays. But before that love comes, if it comes, you must meet yourself. Fully, fiercely, tenderly. You must become the one you once begged someone else to be, the one who chooses you, shows up for you, stays with you through every storm. That is the real healing. Not finding him, but finding her, the woman inside you who was never lost, only waiting for you to return. So hear this now, and let it sink deep. The one lie men tell women is that they are ready for love when they are not. The one truth you must tell yourself is that you were always worthy of it. And the moment you believe that, everything changes. Now ask yourself, are you finally ready to stop waiting for someone else to choose you and start choosing yourself?